told you one of the world's poorest nations is quietly building airports, solar farms, gold reserves, even a military alliance that's shaking global power? This isn't a headline. It's Burkina Faso's reality. And these are the 15 mega projects that are transforming the heart of Burkina Faso from the ground up. At number 15, the gold revolution ending raw export. In a land blessed with gold but burdened by poverty, Burkina Faso used to export its fortune, raw, unprocessed, and undervalued. Foreign companies took the shine. The people were left with the dust. But under Captain Ibrahim Traoré, that era is over. One of his boldest economic moves is halting the export of unrefined gold. Instead of watching wealth vanish across borders, Traoré demanded the value stay right where it belongs in Burkina Faso. His government partnered with local investors to build the country's first gold refinery. A sleek, high-capacity facility now turns raw ore into finished gold bars, stamped with the Burkinabe seal. This isn't just about economic pride, it's about sovereignty, jobs, and ending decades of exploitation. Today, the profits are higher, the taxes stay home, and young engineers trained on site are part of a new industrial generation. Burkina Faso is no longer just a mining site, it's a refining nation, and that, in the gold game, changes everything. At number 14, the rise of the beer. Burkina Faso has been locked in a deadly struggle against terrorism, with armed groups terrorizing villages and seizing control of vast regions. Previous governments responded slowly, but Captain Ibrahim Traoré changed the game. Enter the Rapid Intervention Brigades, or BIR, specialized, mobile, and ruthlessly effective. Under Traoré's command, up to 25 elite BIR units were deployed across conflict zones, built to respond in hours, not days. They don't just wait for orders, they hunt threats. Equipped with advanced weaponry, rapid transport vehicles, and satellite communications, the BIR units are designed to operate in rough terrain where traditional forces struggled. Each brigade is a mix of seasoned soldiers and young recruits, trained in tactical combat, surveillance, and community protection. And their mission is clear: reclaim every inch of Burkinabe soil. In just months, these brigades have helped secure supply routes, retake key towns, and restore confidence in national defense. It's not just military innovation. It's a new doctrine, agile, aggressive, and unrelenting. Traoré didn't just fight back, he rearmed the republic. At number 13, Burkina Faso's first gold refiner. For decades, Burkina Faso exported its gold raw, shipped out in dusty containers, only to return as polished bars sold at triple the value. Captain Ibrahim Traoré had seen enough. He ordered a monumental shift in national resource management, build the country's first ever gold refinery. Located in the heart of Burkina Faso's mining belt, the facility is a state-of-the-art marvel, capable of refining hundreds of kilograms of gold per day, using environmentally conscious methods and cutting-edge technology. But the refinery isn't just about the metal, it's about economic dignity, jobs for local engineers, contracts for local suppliers, a new era where gold doesn't just leave the ground, it fuels the nation's growth from the inside out. This move disrupted the status quo and sent a message to foreign mining giants: you can't take everything anymore. Now, instead of exporting raw resources and importing luxury, Burkina Faso is owning the entire value chain. Gold isn't just being mined, it's being mastered on Burkinabe soil. At number 12, the volunteers of the homeland, a nation on guard. When your borders are bleeding and your village is under siege, sometimes the army isn't enough. So Ibrahim Traoré turned to the people. He doubled down on a bold, unconventional force, the Volunteers for the Defense of the Homeland, or VDP. Farmers, teachers, traders, all trained and armed to defend their communities. Under Traoré's leadership, the VDP program expanded dramatically from a few thousand fighters to nearly 90,000 volunteers spread across Burkina Faso. They're not just civilians with guns, they're guardians of their land. The government provides weapons, training camps, and strategic coordination with the National Army. In return, the VDP stand as the first line of resistance in rural areas too remote for traditional forces. It's a risky move, arming civilians always is, but in a war where terrorists hide in plain sight, Traoré chose to empower the people. not just protect them. In Burkina Faso, defense is no longer the military's job alone. It's a shared duty, and the VDP have turned from bystanders to battlefield legends. At number 11, the Pan-African breakup. For over a century, France's shadow loomed large over Burkina Faso, from its military bases to its media, policies, and politics. But in 2023, Captain Ibrahim Traoré drew a clear, irreversible line in the Sahel sand. French troops were ordered out, French media was shut down, and the French military deals were canceled. It wasn't just a foreign policy decision, it was a generational rupture. Traoré declared that Burkina Faso would no longer be a satellite of its former colonizer. He accused Paris of neo-colonial meddling, of hypocrisy and counterterrorism, and of disrespecting African sovereignty, so he cut the cord. The French military exited the Camboinsin base. RFI and France 24 were banned, and Burkina Faso began pivoting toward new alliances with Russia, China, and fellow Sahel states. Critics called it reckless, supporters called it revolutionary. But one thing was clear, Traoré wasn't interested in playing nice with the past. He's writing a new page for Burkina Faso, one where African nations don't ask for permission. They take the pen and write the future themselves. At number 10, From Seed to Sovereignty, the Agricultural Uprising. In Burkina Faso, food insecurity has long been a silent enemy, just as dangerous as bullets and bombs. But under Captain Ibrahim Traoré, farming became a front line of liberation. He launched one of the most ambitious agricultural support programs in the country's history. Hundreds of tractors, thousands of motorized tillers, irrigation pumps, improved seed varieties, and tons of fertilizers freely distributed to farmers. The goal was not just to survive, but to thrive without imports. Traoré's plan prioritized food sovereignty, aiming to break the cycle of dependency on foreign grains and overpriced staples. Entire rural regions began springing back to life. Women's cooperatives got machines. Youth collectives started local agribusinesses, and villages once abandoned due to insecurity became green zones of hope. He didn't just give them tools, he gave them purpose. Now, from millet fields to tomato farms, the countryside is rising. Because in Traoré's Burkina Faso, the revolution doesn't wear suits, it wears muddy boots. At number 9, slashing salaries, raising hope. In a region where political elites often feast while citizens starve, Captain Ibrahim Traoré made a statement few leaders dare. He slashed his ministers' salaries, cut government extravagance, and redirected the savings straight into the hands of workers. Civil servants, teachers, healthcare workers, they all saw a massive salary boost, with increases of up to 50% in some sectors. For years, these essential workers had labored under low pay, delayed salaries, and crumbling systems. But Traoré's message was clear. If you serve the people, you should be able to feed your family. He didn't stop at salaries. He also canceled large swaths of domestic public debt, clearing the state's overdue obligations to local contractors and civil institutions. It wasn't just economics. It was restoring trust between government and citizen, between paycheck and purpose. Suddenly, public servants weren't just surviving. They were standing taller, working harder, and believing, maybe for the first time, that their government had their back. Traoré didn't just pay wages, he paid attention. At number 8, the birth of the Sahel Alliance. When the world turned its back on the Sahel, Captain Ibrahim Traoré turned to his neighbors. In a historic move, he joined forces with the military leaders of Mali and Niger, forming the Alliance of Sahel States, a regional pact built on sovereignty, solidarity, and survival. This wasn't just a handshake, it was a geopolitical earthquake. Together, these three countries vowed to defend one another against external threats, share military intelligence, coordinate counter-terror operations, and chart a future free from Western interference. Critics called it a club of juntas, but supporters saw it as the first real African bloc unshackled from colonial systems. Traoré even withdrew Burkina Faso from ECOWAS, blasting the West African body for siding with foreign powers and sanctioning fellow Sahel nations. The alliance didn't ask for handouts, it didn't beg for aid, it declared, "We will protect our people our way." For the first time in years, three embattled nations stood not as isolated regimes, but as brothers in arms. At number 7, the progressive and popular revolution, Traoré's new vision. Most leaders inherit power, but Ibrahim Traoré declared a revolution. In April 2025, he unveiled the Progressive and Popular Revolution not just as a slogan, but a sweeping ideological doctrine meant to guide Burkina Faso into a new era of independence, unity, and justice. Inspired by the legacy of Thomas Sankara, Traoré's revolution promotes Pan-Africanism over foreign dependency, self-reliance over imported solutions, civic participation over political elitism, and militant patriotism over passive governance. This isn't your average policy blueprint. It's an all-out cultural reset from education to agriculture, defense to diplomacy. Under this doctrine, schools are being restructured to teach African history, youth movements are being mobilized to plant trees and defend territory, and state media now broadcasts messages of national pride and continental unity. Critics call it propaganda. Supporters call it awakening. Traoré doesn't just want to lead a government. He wants to forge a generation, a Burkina Faso generation that walks tall, thinks free, and dares to dream African. This isn't about 4-year terms. It's about a 100-year legacy. At number 6, the rebirth of Thomas Sankara, honoring a revolutionary spirit. In Burkina Faso, the name Thomas Sankara isn't just remembered, it's revered. And under Ibrahim Traoré, Sankara's legacy isn't confined to history books. It's been resurrected in full color. One of Traoré's first cultural moves was to build a brand new mausoleum for the slain revolutionary, complete with murals, statues, and a memorial plaza that draws youth, tourists, and freedom lovers from across Africa. But it didn't stop there. He renamed streets and institutions in Sankara's honor. He revived Sankara's speeches on national broadcasts. He even patterned his military uniform and rhetoric after the African Che Guevara. This wasn't nostalgia. It was symbolic warfare against the colonial past, against political apathy, against forgetting who they once were. Sankara dreamed of a self-sufficient, proud, anti-imperialist Burkina Faso, and Traoré is trying to finish that dream. To the young rebels, the farmers, the foot soldiers, Traoré isn't just a president, he's the living echo of a legend. At number 5, Burkina Faso's Green Revolution, fighting desertification. Burkina Faso is on the front lines of climate change, with desertification creeping into farmlands and swallowing villages. But Captain Ibrahim Traoré decided that the land would not die on his watch. He launched an ambitious Green Burkina initiative focused on reforestation, water conservation, and renewable energy. Millions of trees are being planted across the Sahel belt, creating green corridors to stop desert winds, restore soil fertility, and shield crops. Water retention basins and small dams are being built to trap rainwater during the short wet season, giving farmers a lifeline during long droughts. And beyond the fields, Traoré is pushing solar power projects, aiming to make Burkina Faso less dependent on expensive imported fuel and unreliable energy grids. The result is not just environmental protection, it's food security, energy independence, and rural revival. In Traoré's Burkina Faso, the fight against desertification isn't just about trees, it's about survival and sovereignty. At number 4, powering progress, the solar energy drive. In a country where blackouts used to be routine and fuel imports drained the economy, Ibrahim Traoré chose a brighter path literally. He launched a national campaign to turn Burkina Faso into a solar-powered powerhouse. At the heart of this mission, new solar farms across the Sahel, paired with battery storage systems to supply homes, schools, and hospitals, even after sunset. But this wasn't just about lighting up cities. Traoré made sure rural villages, the ones long ignored by development, were the first beneficiaries. He championed off-grid solar kits, bringing electricity to communities that had never seen a light bulb glow at night. Markets stayed open later. Clinics could refrigerate medicine. Kids could study after dark. Even Dawson International Airport, his flagship infrastructure project, runs partly on clean solar energy. It's a message that echoes across the sand. Burkina Faso isn't chasing the future. It's building it, panel by panel, sun by sun. At number 3, the Industrial Awakening, building local, thinking global. For decades, Burkina Faso exported raw goods and imported everything else, from tomato paste to school uniforms. Captain Ibrahim Traoré saw the flaw and flipped the script. He launched a bold initiative to industrialize the nation from the ground up, starting with local processing plants. Under his leadership, 2 modern tomato processing factories were built, turning surplus harvests into packaged goods sold in local markets. A new cotton processing plant was commissioned, allowing Burkina Faso cotton to be spun, woven, and stitched without ever leaving the country. Small-scale assembly hubs for tools, tractors, and solar kits began popping up, creating jobs and cutting costs. For Traoré, it wasn't just about factories. It was about freedom. Freedom from overpriced imports, foreign manipulation, and economic humiliation. Every machine installed, every worker hired, every box labeled made in Burkina Faso. That's not just progress, that's pride in production. At number 2, the youth mobilization, new generation of patriots. In a nation where over 60% of the population is under 25, Ibrahim Traoré saw not a burden, but an army of potential. So he tapped into the power of the youth. He created nationwide youth engagement programs, channeling their energy into defense, agriculture, technology, and civic leadership. University students were encouraged to join community defense brigades or enroll in fast-track engineering and agricultural fellowships. Young entrepreneurs received grants and equipment to launch startups in rural development and clean tech. And through massive cultural campaigns, music, film, radio, he began rebranding patriotism, not as blind loyalty, but as an active contribution. Suddenly, being pro-Burkina wasn't old-fashioned. It was cool, it was rebellious, it was revolutionary. From rappers dropping Sankarist verses to techies coding anti-colonial apps, the youth didn't just join the mission, they became the mission. Traoré didn't just recruit followers, he forged a movement. At number 1, Danson International Airport, a runway to the future. For years, Burkina Faso's international gateway was landlocked and land-choked. The old Ouagadougou airport, boxed in by city sprawl and outdated design. But under Captain Ibrahim Traoré, a bold new dream took flight. Danson International Airport, located 35 kilometers northeast of the capital, this $700 million mega project is more than just a new airport. It's a declaration that Burkina Faso is done playing small. The airport boasts ultra-modern terminals, expanded cargo and passenger capacity, cutting-edge air traffic control, and most impressively, it's powered by solar energy, backed by a battery storage system and green infrastructure. But Danson isn't just about travel. It's a strategic economic engine anchoring a special development zone that will host tech hubs, logistics firms, and export industries. Construction had stalled for years. Then Traoré stepped in and the cranes returned. The workers marched and the runways stretched. It's not just an airport. It's a symbol of arrival on the world stage, in the regional economy, and into a new era of Burkina Faso confidence. Because in Traoré's Burkina Faso, the sky is no longer the limit. It's the runway.